There you go, Bob.
Thank you, Miss Sarah. Hey, everybody, welcome. My name is Barb Cardell. I'm the Leadership Development Director with the Positive Women's Network USA. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's March 4th as we are getting ready to attend AIDSWatch in the middle of this month. It is going to be a spectacular opportunity for us to show up, to talk about policy with elected officials, to represent people living with HIV, and to make sure that in all of our conversation, the needs of PWN members are lifted up and centered. So glad to have you with us today. And we're going to go ahead and I am going to pass to Brandy, who is going to get us started. B, you ready?
Yes. Are we changing the slides by any chance when we do pop up anything? Oh, okay. Welcome everyone. I hope everyone is doing well this afternoon, evening, or wherever you're at. I am Brandy or B and she, her, Aya, and I'm out of Portland, Oregon. And it's good to see everyone and have everyone here today. Thank you so much. We have for our presenters, we have Barb Cardell, we have Melanie Reese, myself, and Sally Thompson. Thomas, sorry, Sally. Here we go to the next slide. Great. Today we're going to be overviewing for AIDSWatch. A lot of you are here because you know exactly what AIDSWatch is, and some of you may not know what AIDSWatch is, so we're here to tell you all about it. We're going to go over what is AIDSWatch, our goals, and our meaningful involvement, the policy landscape, the logistics and overview, how are we getting there, accommodations, the location, schedule of events, and then we are going to go over any questions or discussions that anyone may have. Next slide. Please take a few minutes to share why is AIDSWatch important to you and what is the most powerful moment you have experienced at AIDSWatch. And I'll go ahead and share first, and I'll say that AIDSWatch is important to me because it gives us an opportunity to bring lived experiences into spaces where decisions are being shaped. It's a chance to share what our lives actually look like beyond statistics and assumptions, and to talk about the realities of people that people don't always hear. And for me, it's always a reminder that even one voice and one person can make a difference. I'm often have been the only one attending for my state, so it's very inspirational to know that no matter what, that I still try to keep going and attending. Um, and when we show up and tell our stories, it puts a human face to issues that help people better understand real impact of the decisions that have on our lives and our communities. And I'll share one powerful moment that I had at AIDSWatch. I always get, I always go blank during speaking or public speaking. And so I was very nervous during this one in particular. I had attendance from this meeting from the Elizabeth Taylor Foundation and AIDS United had joined me. And I had went into that meeting talking about the importance of our HIV negative loved ones who are in our lives, our partners, our family members, caregivers, siblings. And because of their experiences are often not talked about or elevated, this was important to be able to relay this message, but also feel like it wasn't being left out of the conversation and out of the information that I was trying to relay to the people that I was speaking about. And I remember Jesse coming up to me after, who's no longer with AIDS United, but coming up to me after and making the statement that our husbands and our loved ones deserve the dignity as well. And hearing that acknowledgement to me meant a lot, and I carry that with me because it was very powerful to hear that no matter what information I really wanted to bring, that I was that one voice and that one person in that moment, and somebody listened to me and somebody heard me, and validating those that are often not spoken of. And so that reminded me that policy, we're not only fighting for policies, but we're fighting to make sure that every part of our community, including the people who stand beside us, are being recognized and seen. And thank you. And for anybody else that would like to share.
This is Lizzie Bellamy from South Carolina. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is my second time going to AIDS Watch. The importance is that I feel that when I'm at AIDS Watch and I am speaking to our representatives or their um, their spokespeople, I my voice matter. It was my first time going, and everybody was encouraging me on the part that I wanted to speak on, which was reproductive health. And when I finished, I got so many compliments, and they were like, "Oh man, you act like you've been here before," but I was so nervous.
Hey, Lizzie,
But it,
we're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. You're kind of going in and out. I'm not sure if you're walking and talking or if you can stand still for a minute. You're really clear, and then you sort of fade out a little bit.
I'm sorry, I was on my headset.
Oh, now you're
Um,
brilliant, though.
but my first time going, I was amazed about being in DC. Um, I was amazed to have that opportunity. I went with Pat Kelly and some others, Stacey Jennings and those. And like I say, I spoke on, my part was speaking on reproductive health. And when I did, I was so nervous. I didn't know how I was coming across. Um, and I just felt like I was fumbling and stumbling. But when I finished, everybody told me that I did a great job. And that made me feel, really recognized for being there and that my voice did matter.
Thank you for sharing. I see Sarah.
Hello, yes, this will be my first AIDSWatch. I've never been, and I'm so happy to be going because it's important to me so my voice can be heard, so my legislators can hear what I have to say and how I feel about the changes that are going on.
Mm.
And that's why I want to go so I can speak, tell my story, and let them know how their their ways affected me, their law. Something I hate.
Thank
And B, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see in the chat. LaDawn wrote that it's her first time and that it gives us a chance to have our voices heard. Our testimonies are impactful. And then Tyra wrote that they've not been able to go yet. They think that advocacy is attributed to keeping the narrative honest, educational, and significant. It's a very important reason to have people go. And then finally, Sonia said that AIDS Watch is important to me because I can use my voice to let our representatives know what we need as a community. First time going and walking through the halls of the Capitol and realizing I do belong here. Oof, that right there.
Yes, yes.
thank you, Barb. It looks like we have about a minute left. If anybody else would like to come off mute and share or share in the chat.
Um, AIDS Watch is important to me because it's an opportunity not only for me, but I love being with lots of AIDS Watch attendees going on their visits to their representatives and elected officials because we're seen um, in numbers and we're going to be telling our story, like B so eloquently said, we're not statistics on a piece of paper. We are humans, and we have a story to tell that can impact the mindset of the people that we are talking to. And one powerful moment at AIDSWatch, I was traveling with a van load of people from Maryland, and I noticed that once we started walking towards the uh, offices for Hill visits, we had missed the gathering, the rally in the beginning, but we parked and we went on our Hill visits. And there were 7 of us. 6 of us were on canes walking that long way, and one was someone who wore flats. And when she got near an office, she put on her stacked high heels so she could be presentable when she went to the office. And it was just amazing how those of us on the canes, we powered along because we were gonna get our stories told. And on that particular day, our Ben Carden, and that's also when Barbara Mikulski was still there. They met us, not their staff, but we got to speak with them directly, and that was powerful.
You're amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Melanie. Yeah, I just want to lift up that Rebecca put in the chat that last year California had a large delegation, but she was the only out HIV positive cisgender woman. Our representatives need to know that women get HIV too. Story from the beginning of the epidemic all the way through to now.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So just to kind of, yep, Valerie, we'll go ahead and get to you in just a second, unless you've got a question, okay? We're going to move on. So AIDSWatch, here's what I want y'all to think about. For AIDSWatch in 2025, look, 2026, our goal is to educate Congress about the importance of the issues that we've talked about here, about reproductive justice, about the fact that women and feminine bodies get HIV as well, that programs that are cut impact us deeply, and that we really are not going to actually quietly stand by while the programs that we have worked so hard to develop and make sure approach meeting the needs of our communities are stripped away and removed. So it's to educate and to advocate for ourselves, and it's to lift up the voices of those of us who are living with HIV as the subject matter experts we are. It is too easy for organizations and AIDS Inc. to speak for us, and this is an opportunity for us to speak for ourselves, which is so powerful. Last year, it was the 32nd AIDSWatch, so it's been going on for a while. There were 630 people who attended, which is amazing, from 38 states, also Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia or Washington, D.C. And there were 271 Hill meetings. So if you think about that, that is pretty powerful. That is making sure that the voices for our community are lifted up in the most incredible and powerful way. Yeah, housing is a critical part that we advocate for as well. So one of the things, as we have mentioned, us speaking with our voices about what we know matters to us, is intentionally elevating this principle called the meaningful involvement of people living with HIV. And I'm going to pass it to Melanie, who is going to go ahead and talk to us about meaningful involvement and what it means, especially at AIDSWatch.
Okay, next slide. Meaningful involvement and engagement. Ensure that people living with HIV are part of the advocacy process, that our voices are heard, and help define policy. Diverse communities of people living with HIV are in DC and prepared to speak for their needs and the needs of their community. Communities most impacted by HIV are at the center of the conversations with legislators to the extent they choose to be. And that's important, the extent they choose to be. Specifically, youth, immigrants, people of trans experience. Oops.
Sorry.
People of color, new participants, people living with HIV, and women. That intersectionality is respected and not diminished. People with lived experience, the subject matter experts, will intentionally included attend to power and privilege dynamics. Next slide.
Yeah. So, Melanie, before we go on, I just have a question for you.
Okay.
When we talk about MIPA and meaningful involvement, did you gave a little bit of an example of when we felt meaningfully involved. Do you want to talk a little bit more about how we know when we're not being included and what we can do about it? Because this is, I mean, these are advocates that are going to be there, and we need to learn some wisdom about if we say we're the subject matter experts. What do we do if we're not being really intentionally included? What does that mean, and what does that feel like?
Okay, what that means is you have a delegation where there are people who are not of lived experience who feel they need to be the leaders of the conversation in the rooms where the elected officials, or most probably there's staff, and you're just observers and not um, telling of your experience. And I've seen that, and I've been a part of that, and it does not feel good. It feels powerful to tell your story. It feels powerful to translate a policy ask using your story, your lived experience. That is powerful, and it should never be taken away. And you know what it's like to live with HIV, and you know what these policies, these funding cuts, how it can impact your life and the lives of people that you love and know in your communities and across the United States. So use your voice and do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, because you are knowledgeable, you are powerful, you are subject matter experts, and you don't have to cover all the policies and do all the asks. Just pick one that really speaks to you. And that's going to give you that additional courage and to tell your story.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Melanie. That's a beautiful illustration of why it's so important, for sure. Wanda, did you have a short point that you wanted to add?
Okay, so you're in the room and you have people that are assigned by AIDSWatch or whomever that are not of lived experience, but yet they're hogging the conversation. Do you have a recommended appropriate way other than maybe standing up and saying, "Excuse me, I appreciate your conversation, but I'm actually living with HIV and I would like to share my story"? Thoughts?
You can either stand up or raise your hand. Get acknowledged. Make sure they see that you have something to say, and say it.
Yeah. Yeah, too often we are an afterthought. I was on a planning call with a partner who shall remain nameless, that was talking about AIDSWatch and about organizing state-led conversations. And they're like, yeah, and make sure that if you happen to have people living with HIV in the room, that you let them tell their stories. Oh, I'm so sorry. Letting us tell our stories is so patronizing and problematic that it absolutely infuriates me beyond imagination. So I like the raising my hand. I think that's very polite. Otherwise, I have been known to just kind of say, actually put a perspective on that. And I actually don't use somebody, I don't identify as somebody with lived experience. I say I'm a person living with HIV because when we talk about lived experience, that could be someone with lived experience around drug use. That could be someone with lived experience around immigration status that is challenged. That could be someone of many different lived experiences. So I think sometimes people use that because they're afraid to say the word HIV, not in our spaces, but I do, so I'll say, as somebody who's been living with HIV, here's what I have to add. And I do that unapologetically because I figure that this day and this event is supposed to be about hearing our voices. So great
And that's a
question.
good thing, Barb, because a lot of people will say, especially in high spaces, they don't know anyone living with HIV. They've never seen or experienced anyone who's living with HIV. So you're saying
Yeah.
that you are living with HIV, that's an exclamation point um,
Mhm.
to whatever you were going to say.
And just as a little aside, and I'm going to make it quick because I want to make sure we get plenty of time for questions in a little bit. Um, when somebody says they don't know anybody living with HIV, which you will hear in offices, in elected officials' offices in Washington, D.C., you can very politely respond to them. You actually probably do,
Mhm.
but that person hasn't felt safe sharing their status with you or other people in your community. And so that is not like shaming or blaming them, but it is inviting them to think about where they might have made comments that have made them somebody where people don't feel comfortable telling them. Um, and I have used that to open up a lot of conversations. So appreciate that. Thank you, Melanie, for that little tutorial on MIPA. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sally, and Sally's going to take about 15 minutes to walk us through what the policy landscape is. So we're going to Washington, D.C. A lot of times people are overwhelmed by this flurry of chaos and confusion. Sally, what do we got to know to go there and to be really ready to talk so that we both feel comfortable and prepared, but also can frame what we're experiencing in our lives and connecting it to what's going on in Washington?
Sure. Can y'all hear me okay?
Sure can.
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi everyone. I would love to just see, like, I saw some in the chat, folks saying that they haven't been to AIDSWatch. Um, but AIDSWatch is just another opportunity for you to use your voice in front of your legislators. So has anyone spoken to their legislators, maybe on a state level or on a local level? Can you drop some hearts or thumbs up if you have done that, even if it was AIDSWatch or not AIDSWatch? Cool. Okay, so we got some seasoned advocates in here. I'm not surprised. Um, so this is federal advocacy, where you're meeting with your federal legislators who represent the people in the district within your state. Um, so I don't know where the slides are. Hold on. Okay. So we're just going to talk a little bit about like what the political climate is right now. Like how does our advocacy show up in a time like this? Next slide, please. Okay, so here I just put together a bunch of headlines that are within the past few weeks, just to give an idea of like the chaos, as Barb so correctly stated, is kind of going on at the federal level. As you can see, there's also mentions of state administrators and local administrators. And that is because the things that happen at the federal level don't end there. Your states are supposed to represent you as well. So your governors are supposed to represent you. And then like on a municipal level, you have like Mayor Zoran Mamdani, who has a say. So there might be attacks coming from a federal level, but it's up to us to one, vote, and two, make sure that we're speaking up to all of our legislators, not just at AIDSWatch, but beyond. Um, but this collage kind of just gives you an idea of the type of attacks that we're currently under. Um, so, like, we have attacks against reproductive health. We have attacks coming in as far as immigration customs enforcement, or ICE. We have attacks on foreign aid. A lot of foreign aid have been removed, um, causing a frenzy as far as HIV treatment, testing, and all that goes. We're also seeing a lot of government shutdowns. I feel like we're having a government shutdown like once a week. I mean, once a month, but all of that, these are all tactics, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but um, this is the chaos that is the moment that we're in. Um, or just a picture of it. There's more. Um, Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm calling the crumbling public health infrastructure. So we know that the public health infrastructure is being underfunded, um, but now in particular, it's being like structurally weakened. Um, We're looking at like the federal budget process as the structural threat. So right now, there are a lot of threats to cuts or actual cuts that are going on. As you all know, the HR 1 passed, and which is the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which we're calling the Big Ugly Murder Bill because that's what it's doing. Um, but we're seeing a lot around Medicaid cuts, for example. And we're also hearing a lot about cuts to HIV funding. So these are the type of like budget issues that are currently on the floor. Um, we're seeing a lot of the money being used as kind of like a decoy. Like if you don't agree with this, then we're not going to provide funding for this, this, and that. So it's kind of being used as a threat in this current climate. Um, but yeah, essentially, the federal budget will determine what our systems of public health can do, what they're able to do. So that includes Medicaid, that includes any CDC funding, that includes HIV funding. And when the budget negotiations become a place where the two sides are fighting against each other, that means that the funding is now unpredictable or unstable. And these agencies have to really shift from what they were doing as long-term planning to like short-term, almost like survival state, because there's so much uncertainty around funding. Um, yeah, and a lot of times when there's a lack of federal funding, it's the states that have to absorb a lot more of the financial risk, um, since they lose that kind of financial partnership from the federal government. And we're seeing that show up as far as like a strain on our safety net providers, like our Ryan White, for example. And then also, like, we have other opportunities for folks to receive the things that they need. For example, which I'm calling philanthropic backfill, which basically means like there's portions of money that people are donating to basically supplement what is not available either from federal or state. So that's like your abortion funds or your gender affirming care funds. Those are critical, but they are not sustainable over a long course of time. Um, yeah. Next, well, ultimately, with the public health infrastructure shrinking and this kind of politicizing of public policy, um, it's destabilizing to our public health system. And, HIV outcomes will depend on a stable health system. So it's a very unstable, and we're going to go with Barb's word again, chaotic time um, at the federal level, which then spills down to state level and then to local level also. Um, Next slide, please. Okay, cool. So I'm just talk a little bit about policing, criminalization, and state violence. So as you all are seeing, there's been an increase of immigration enforcement, especially in Black and Brown communities. Um, but we're seeing kind of like this shift to like punitive governance or enforcement. So we're not this is not something it's not something that's new. And I like to bring up the fact that in 1990, federal the Congress passed a bill that basically said if you don't have an HIV criminalization law on the books, we will not give you this funding to combat the HIV pandemic epidemic in your state. So that's why states have those laws. So this is kind of a similar thing. Like we're using punishment to try to address public health issues or any issues that are kind of present before the government. This administration is using a lot of these kind of punitive tactics. Um, so we're thinking about how there's been such an expansion of detention and removal authority for ICE agents. But that's creating a concern for the immigrants who are in need, especially those who are in need of public services. For example, like this ties back to HIV because when health providers or healthcare providers are not legally required to report immigration status, that still is a environment of fear. Um, Fear that a person's data might be shared, or this type of fear kind of deters people from seeking prevention or testing and even treatment. And this leads to an uptick of uh, people going into emergency room care, which puts a strain on our hospitals as well. So all these systems are set up the way that they are to make sure that things are kind of balanced in a way. But when there's a disruption like this, it creates multiple problems on multiple levels. Um, but yeah, so with these type of threats, there's also threats to trans and gender diverse communities. So in several states, we're seeing that gender-affirming care for minors is being restricted or even criminalized. And this is kind of putting providers in a weird space where they're not sure if what they're doing is legal or not. And a lot of them are deciding, hey, maybe I can't be a provider in this state, and they're leaving. Or maybe the folks who are in need of gender-affirming care are having to leave their state to go somewhere else. And it's just really creating burden on top of burden. And this is like the policing and criminalization kind of environment that we're in right now. And it's not normal, but it's pretty consistent and across kind of a wide range of issues right now. Um, yeah. Next slide, please. Okay. Political retaliation. Anyone know what I mean by that? Have you heard of like political retribution or political
If,
retaliation?
if I may,
Yeah.
it it's kind of like when the retired service person that is so outspoken in Congress, Mark something or other, and he he stated to when the orange person brought all the people, all the leaders, all the high ranking people together and put them in one room, which was so stupid. And he told them that that was a stupid move. And he also told him, and has constantly told him, that a lot of the things that he is asking service persons to do not fall in lines of the rules and regulations of service people.
That's
So he gets
correct.
retaliated against. They want to put him in prison. They want to execute him. Is that
Right.
what you mean?
Yeah, that's a great example of political retaliation or political
Hi.
retribution. Oh, go ahead, Terwin. I see your hand
No,
up.
this is Elder.
Oh, I see some hands up. Wait, go ahead, Elder.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then go ahead. Whoever's in front of me, I can wait.
Okay. I see Tyra and then Tana and then Elder, you're up next.
I was just going to
Okie
say
dokie.
that political retaliation, the whole administration is about retaliation, honestly, because they're arresting people that were in the trying to prosecute him before in the last presidency, and they're the ones that are on the chopping block, and all the ones that are losing their jobs, and all the ones that are getting prosecuted, and bodies trying to investigate, and then retaliating about toward people that do stand up. Anyone in opposition of Trump in any way is a target. I have even my TikTok page that I have is being watched, and I know it is because it's doing some really weird things. And I wonder when ICE is going to show up at my door because I'm very vocal and I'm going to speak my mind. I would rather die fighting,
Mm,
you know? I don't know, that's my
yes,
opinion.
I agree. Thank you for sharing that. I see Tyra, your hand up.
An example I would give for political retaliation would be Trump telling, I'm in California, so Trump telling our governor, either you allow the ICE agents and your police officers to work together to take care of the immigrant population, so to speak, or we're going to withhold federal funding from your state. That's the retaliation part. Do as I
Yeah.
want, or we're going to hold something back.
Yep, that's correct. Um, and I see your hand, Tana.
So I think about retaliation, and I live in Texas. So our immigrant community not being able to get health care. But I also think about the our trans community here in Texas with affirming care, that if uh agencies don't follow these guidelines, they will lose funding
Mm-hmm.
to take care of our people and our women. So I think about, for us here in Texas, everything is a political arena right now.
That's correct. And I'll pass it to Elder to give our last comment on this.
Well, Sally, good evening, everybody. um, Everybody said exactly what I was going to say. Political retaliation is basically either you do as I say or you're going to pay. And that's
Mm-hmm.
basically it. Everybody has said something regarding it. And what makes it so bad is that maybe some of our people, I'm going to use the Democrats, are not adhering or fighting as hard as we want them to fight because they're thinking of the repercussion of what may transpire if they do not fully comply or they do not partially comply. I don't know which one it is, but I know, excuse expression, I'm taking my collar off. They're a bunch of blood clot punks. They have failed us. They have failed their families. They have failed everybody that voted for them. And that is so sad. I don't think I'll be able to vote again. And what was really funny is that today I got a call from the Board of Elections here in New York regarding coordinators and translators. And the money's good, but I don't know if I want to do that again because we're not getting better, we're getting worse. And we need to look at history. We need to look at certain things that happened in history in the past and see that it's happening today. And we're allowing it to continue on. So thank you kindly.
Thank you, Elder. Took the words out of my mouth. Um, what Elder explained as like this kind of climate of political retaliation, it doesn't have to be direct. So just because your legislator wasn't publicly attacked or ridiculed doesn't mean that they're not going to step back and say, well, maybe I shouldn't say anything. This is why we are really emphasizing like our legislators holding the line. But imagine how it feels to see your colleagues publicly attacked or see agencies threatened with funding cuts or states threatened with funding cuts. Seeing people get targeted with random investigations, very targeted investigations, or people like being challenged in the primaries. Um, that all looks like risk to our legislators. Um, but there are legislators, and we need them to do certain things. We need them to speak up for Medicaid. We need them to defend trans health protections. We need them to push back on immigration enforcement. That is the partial government shutdown that's happening currently. Um, our legislators are holding the line, and they're saying, "Hey, we're not going to approve this DHS funding or Department of Homeland Security funding until you add some type of rules for ICE agents." So these are examples of like why we need to talk to our legislators. So they have a very important role to play when it comes to all of these kind of federal budget things that are happening. And to Elder's point about voting, I know that this becomes like a very like kind of disheartening topic, but our voices matter. Our voices matter in person at places like AIDSWatch. Our voices matter at the polls. And we should be encouraging folks to get out there as well. I know that this it's is hard and it looks like what we're doing is not having the impact that we'd want. But if we give up, that just gives them more room to take over. So I'll say, I know it might not always feel great, but we gotta use what we have to really hone in on our power that we do have. Um, but yeah, so like I said, the retaliation basically um, it doesn't really require a lot. Um, So it just looks like a credible threat. So a policy is proposed, um, or only a few officials speak out. Like they're creating an environment that makes those who are in opposition feel like they better watch what they say. Um, but this is where the silence comes in, and as we know, um, being silent means being complicit. So if you're silent, I'm going to think you agree with what's going on. So we really just want to make sure that um, we're kind of changing what I'm calling this incentive structure. Like we're talking about how angry we are at our legislators for not doing this and not doing that, or doing this and doing that. But when do we thank our legislators for holding the line? I think that that's something important to bring to AIDSWatch as well. If you know that your legislator didn't support HR1, or if you know that your legislator was holding the line on some of these budget issues that we were having, make sure to thank them. If they've signed or co-sponsored anything regarding HIV, thank them. Um, and remind them that we care about public health and that they have constituents that support them and their decisions to hold the line on public health. Um, and our AIDS Watch briefs, which we'll talk about later on a different meeting, will give them the information that they need to know why it's important to defend uh, HIV. So just, change the incentive in terms of really just letting your legislators know, like,
Time for the rush hour. Can you pop?
oh, sorry. Just letting your legislators know that um, their courage means a lot during this time. Uh, Next slide, please. I'll make this quick. I know I'm probably over time, but the last thing I want to say to you all is that collective power is our greatest protection and that we are stronger together. What I mean by that is obviously there are a lot of different social movements that are happening at the same time, and we can say, you know, I stand for transgender healthcare because I'm a member of that community, or I stand for racial justice because that is something that impacts me. But what you don't all understand, all of this is interconnected. So any public health issue is an immigration issue, is a transgender issue, is a reproductive health issue, is a racial issue. So we have to really just understand that right now it does us no good to operate in silos. These are the things that this is what they want. They want us to kind of separate from each other, so that we have less power. But when we come together, that's when we really show how strong we are. Um, there's we talk about intersectionality, and everyone knows what the word means. Everyone uses the word to describe things, but it's actually an action word. It's a practice. You have to practice intersectionality. So you have to understand that, for example, disruptions to reproductive justice impact access to HIV prevention and care, and that immigration policy impacts access to treatment, and that trans health protections impact HIV outcomes. Like, you have to think in a way that will allow you to consider the fact that every person matters and every movement matters. If we want to see the result that we're looking for, we can't leave anybody behind, or we can't choose this over that. We just have to come together and stick together. Um, that's why I say solidarity is not optional. So even if it doesn't impact you, it actually does. And it might not impact you directly, but it impacts the things that you care about. So if we want to protect HIV funding, if we want to protect our communities and each other, we have to all stand together. Um, so bring up these issues that are, you know, present on this current political landscape and tie them back to why that matters for people living with HIV. Tie that back to why that matters to trans folks, why that matters to Black and brown folks, to immigrants. Um, all of this can all come back together. Um, it's all connected, and that's why we need to stay connected in our fight against all of this. Um, yeah, and I'll pass it back to B, maybe, or Barb.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. I know people might have some questions. We're gonna have time at the end to ask questions, and we're just gonna keep going along with B talking about our logistics, because what helps people who have never been to AIDSWatch before, maybe a little bit with the anxiety, is to understand a little bit about what it's gonna be like. And so we're gonna go ahead and B, I'm gonna
Thank you.
spotlight you and have you. There we go.
Um, let's move into logistics overview. Thank you, Sally, for that overview. Logistics. Our location is, or the location is the Renaissance Arlington Capitol View. And the address is there. And the phone number is also there for you to note if you need the phone number to call. Travel from the airports. Reagan National Airport. It is a 5-minute drive from the hotel, and there's a free airport shuttle from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. And you can look for the large black bus with the logos for all three properties: the Renaissance, the Residence Inn, and the Courtyard. And some of us will be placed in different hotels, but we'll all be together. There is from the Doles International Airport, that is a 35-minute drive from the hotel. And the Baltimore Washington International is an hour and 45 minutes away. And that is for you just to have that information just in case you're traveling from those specific airports. The complimentary shuttle service from the Renaissance Residence Inn, it stops on 23rd Street, Crystal Drive, near Ruth's Chris Steakhouse and the Crystal City Metro Station. The Metro Pentagon shuttle runs from Monday through Friday, 6:30 to 10, and Saturday and Sunday from 8 to 10 p.m. every half hour on the hour and half hour. Look for the large black bus with the logos for all three properties, Renaissance, Residence, and Courtyard. And for questions about this, please ask at the end. Thank you. Next slide. Packing list. Recommended clothes to bring. We all like to overpack sometimes, or sometimes people underpack. Pack what is comfortable for you, but make sure that you are including your pajamas and some comfortable clothes, just in case you want to walk out in those comfortable clothes somewhere. 1 to 2 nice outfits, or even more if you're someone like me and who needs like 5 outfits to go through. I don't know. Make sure you bring your walking shoes. I didn't do that my first time, and that is very important, especially for the rally and hill day. Some people like umbrellas or rain attire, and make sure you have a light coat or a sweater or some outdoor wear that you can wear in case you're cold. Make sure you have all your toiletries and your personal care products, money for food, and all your meds, including 2 extra days. Please, people, bring your medications. That is very, very important. Some people have left them. Some people got stuck and didn't have them. It's very important. Make sure you have all your medications and your business cards. Next slide, please.
And
I can do what to expect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Schedule overview. There's a QR code, and I think it takes you
So
to the
this
full.
is yeah, this is the schedule. The QR code takes you to the full agenda on the AIDS United website.
Okay. On Monday, March 16th, half day, Save HIV funding rally in front of HHS, institutes, new advocate space, and reception. Is that at the Rayburn?
Okay.
Okay.
No, on Sunday night it is at the hotel. That's the one
Okay.
for the HIV caucus.
Okay. On Tuesday, March 17th, that's a full day. There's orientation and workshops, PWN picture at the start of the lunch. You see the beautiful picture that was at the beginning. You want to be in that picture. So you get to the staircase so that you can get in that picture. And then there's the congressional reception, and I think that's at the Rayburn building.
Yep.
And Wednesday, March 18th, it says full day. Those are Hill Visits days. You start early in the morning with the rally, and then you break and go to your assigned office visits. Next slide.
Melanie, I can talk about this one
Okay.
if that's helpful. So one of the things, if people are coming in early on Monday, which is a travel day for many folks that are on scholarships or that have had their travel arranged through other organizations, on Monday at noon, there's going to be a Save HIV funding rally in front of the Health and Human Services building. It is not at this point in time planned as a direct action that will have people risking arrest, but instead is a celebration of life and a protest. There's going to be a number of us who are going to be reading our pre-obituaries that we have written. Many of you have probably read Kamaria Laffery's excellent pre-obituary that she wrote. There have been a number of other folks who are living with HIV, myself included, who have written our pre-obits and are going to be reading them at the rally. If you want to write a pre-obituary, here is some guidance that Kamaria put together. as well as a registration for the rally. Super important so that if there are changes that you can go ahead and be updated about that. And then finally, I put a link in for Kamaria's pre-obituary there. So this is going to be a celebration of life, and it's supposed to run from about 11 to 1 or 1:30. And then people will be able to go back to the hotel where the AIDSWatch is going to be started, and there'll be institutes that start in the afternoon at about 2 o'clock. So you won't miss any of the AIDSWatch programming, but you do need to get yourself to the rally and back to the hotel, either by Metro or in an Uber, but it's going to be powerful. That was a new piece, Melanie, that you might not have known about. So I wanted to make sure people had a chance to hear about it. It's going to be really powerful, super powerful. And now I will go back to the regular programming and back to you, Melanie.
Okay, congressional meetings. Meet your state group at Tuesday's lunch. Split up visits and discuss roles. Practice with a friend. Visits with members of Congress, scheduled by Soapbox. Let people with lived experience or living with HIV share their stories. Use a buddy system. You need to travel not alone. You need to travel with others. This is a safety measure. Attend all meetings you are scheduled for. And if for some reason there's a conflict or that you're not going to be able to go to a meeting, you need to call Soapbox so that they can cancel it, because no showing for scheduled is not a good look. Next slide. What to talk about? These are QR codes. The first one is Spanish. Oh no, the first one is English and the second one is Spanish. You take your picture of the QR code, and then you can go straight to what the policy briefs are, that have the brief. It has the asks and why it's important. That would be good to download and get in advance, so that you're not hearing it for the first time at AIDSWatch. You have a heads up on what's going to be the important topics we'll be covering at the office visits. Wear your PWN shirt on Tuesday. Making a splash with AIDSWatch shirts on Wednesday. Be mindful of social media posts. Check your privacy settings. Be aware of safety implications and identifying people. Event photography and filming. By attending AIDSWatch, you consent and authorize photography, film, and other recording, but they won't identify you unless you agree. So there will be a form that you'll need to sign if you do not want to be in the photos. Next slide. Mobility support. Washington, D.C., and especially the Hill, can be very tiring. Lots of steps and stairs. All buses to the reception and the rally will be handicapped accessible. AIDS United has a mobility coordinator. Reach out to Sophia at sobregun@aidsunited.org if you have any questions, and she will be available on Wednesday if you need support. Now, right there in the picture, it shows a scooter, but what they provide on the hill, not at the hotel, wheelchairs. And not all the time do they have someone to push the wheelchair other than somebody in your delegation going to the office hill visits with you. Next slide.
Go ahead and take this one then. So, preparing for the hill visits, we're throwing a lot of information at people, primarily because we know that for many of us, having an idea about what's going to happen gives you a chance to think it through and to plan and to strategize and to ask questions. So, we will share, everyone who's registered will share the video recording, we'll share the slides with you, the links, you'll have this information. But we just want to make sure that everybody has a chance to kind of start thinking about AIDSWatch because it's different. It's not a conference. It's not a social gathering. It is like straight up business, and it's an amazing opportunity. So first off, what we want to talk about for preparing for your hill visits is that it is critical, and Melanie talked about this before. Consider your environment. It is very important for people to do a personal safety assessment and to do some personal safety plannings. Know your representatives or the people you're going to be speaking to. If they are, for example, if you are someone who identifies as a transgender person and they are transphobic, it might be a meeting you do not want to be a part of. You do not need to do so. Just let your state coordinator know, and they will let Soapbox know that you won't be attending. But it is important that you not just kind of go off because states tend to keep an eye on each other. We hope that they do to make sure that everyone is included and is taken care of and is a part of it. So prioritize your safety. Stay in touch. PWN will have a signal link for people who are in Washington, D.C. So we want to make sure that everyone who's going to be in Washington, D.C. with PWN is a part of that signal group, because that's where we will post the questions. That's where we will go ahead and, for example, put phone numbers of people like the mobility planner for the day of event, to make sure that everyone has all of that information. A reminder, we do not need to hide who we are. We do not need to apologize for who we are. And we also want to make sure that people are as safe as is possible, knowing that there are so many things that are going on.
Barb, can I add something?
Yeah, please.
We are not the only advocacy group that's going to be in Washington, and there's no control over who are the other groups there. So that's another point that you need to think about when you're planning your safety strategy, because you'll be walking in the halls and you'll see groups that don't align with what we stand for and who we are. And so that's why it's important for you to be sure to have a safety plan.
And it's also really good to exchange phone numbers with everybody that's in your state group, or set up a text group or a text chain with them. Because you want to make sure, indeed, Melanie, thank you. We know that there are going to be lots of people in Washington, D.C., and it is up to us, like we keep us safe, as Nana always said. All right, planning for your legislative visit. This is in the chat. I put a link to our planning form. Many people don't think about what they want to say to their elected officials until they get there. And it's easy to kind of have a little bit of a brain freeze and to forget it. And so this is an outline that PWN put together a long, long time ago when we started doing Hill visits. You would use this form for every single office you visit, and it would have your bullet points, and it would help you kind of remember your story. You don't want to read through it, but it's a good kind of reminder. And so this is just the bullet points, but again, the link is in the chat, and we'll share these resources with you so that you can have them and print it out ahead of time if you want to. But the way you sort of structure your part of a visit is that you want to say what you're there to talk about. I'm here to talk about housing, or I'm here to talk about HIV care and services and the continued funding of Ryan White programs. It's important to me because Ryan White helps provide services for over 50% of people living with HIV. When people are enrolled in Ryan White programs, they do significantly better than folks who are not. That it ensures that people receive specialized care. HIV really is an important matter to me because I've been living with HIV and I know what it was like when I was newly diagnosed and I didn't know who to talk to. And my doctor that I was seeing didn't know anyone else living with HIV and so couldn't give me really good support or any kind of program recommendations. So I need to make sure that the Ryan White programs are available for other people who are newly diagnosed so they're not left alone, scared, and out of care like I was for up to 2 years. So that was my personal story in connecting it. I did not tell my whole life story, even though I personally think it's fascinating. I chose one part that highlighted what my ask was. And so that's part of the reason why it's good to start thinking about it ahead of time is that we have many parts of our lives. Pick the part that highlights this exactly what you want to talk about that highlights what your ask is. So my ask is, Representative Neguse, you actually did not sign on to support HIV funding on the last budget cycle, and I'm really disappointed in that. I've called you every single day since you voted no, and I'm going to ask you, will you commit, or staffer who works with Representative Neguse, will you commit to actually supporting it this next time around? Because you have people like me in your district, and we need you to do better. That's my ask. And it's actually not really an ask, it's more of a demand. And that is important because we want to have it be a hard ask. Can I count on you to do this? Will you do this? This is important. If not, if they might say, well, I need to talk to the representative. And then I often will say, can I follow up with you next week to see what the representative says? We want to make sure that they know that we mean business and that we want them to represent us. And then finally, if there is a response or extra information that the staffer has requested, then I write it down at the bottom of this form. But that's how I go in, and depending on how much time I have, I can lengthen or shorten my conversation points and make sure I hit all of the pieces that I need to when I am there. So that is just a suggestion, but for me, like I said, it helps me feel prepared and a little less anxious when I have these sheets filled out. Few tips just to kind of have people thinking about them. Be on time. Getting through security is atrocious. It's going to take some time. So don't think like, oh, I'm meeting with the senator's office in a half an hour. I've got plenty of time. And then you get stuck in security and you miss it. It is much easier to kind of be on time, lurk out in the hallways, actually go in a little bit early, because sometimes some of the best conversations I've had is when somebody was free and I was able to get more time than they thought that they were going to give me, so that I was able to talk about not just my main point, but also some of my other points that I had. You want to make sure that you introduce everyone in the delegation, lifting up who is a constituent, which means somebody who lives in the district. So if you're seeing representatives, you might only have one or two people in your group of 5 or 6 who lives in that area. It is good to have them lead that meeting, or at the very least, introduce themselves first, because DC lives by who is actually represented by the folks that they're talking to. Be strategic. Like I said, we all have really good stories that highlight a number of really important parts. But what are you there to talk about? What is the most important thing that you want to highlight? Lift that story up first. I always open up at the end and say, if you have any questions, I'm really comfortable talking about HIV. Is there anything I can answer for you? And oftentimes I will get like a sheepish question because they maybe have never known someone that they've been able to ask questions to. So that's always good. Make sure you have a hard ask. You're letting them off the hook. If you just go in and say, hey, I'm here to talk to you about this, and then you don't say, will you support it? We have had some amazing people who have joined the HIV caucus or have supported the HIV Repeal Act that did so because we asked them to do so in their offices. So don't let them off the hook. Feels really uncomfortable. We're used to trying to get along, but this is one time where you need to be really firm. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to be pushy, just firm. Like, I'm asking you to do this. Thank them for their time. I always love to take pictures. We always have the most awkward pictures taken in front of our representatives' offices with the staffer. I actually have one with Representative Gabe Evans and Rika and Matt Pignotti and I from our last year's thing. I'll send it out with this because it's hysterical. We're actually with the representative, and he looks like a cardboard cutout. Like, he looks all stiff and awkward, and it is hysterical. So I'll make sure and share that with you all. I made sure to put it out on my social media because I had asked him if we could, and bragged that we had a chance to actually really get to talk to him. And then a bonus feature is send out thank you cards. If as a group you have a thank you card that you can all sign right after the visit, that's a really good thing to do. Staffers are used to folks coming in and talking to them and just blowing on out of there and never hearing from them again. This is the beginning of a beautiful relationship. You want to keep the card of the staffer that you talk to, follow up with them, thank them, share anything that is interesting, that is going on in your state that they might not know about. Be their point of contact, their subject matter expert who is back in the district that they know will be able to follow up, connect them to people, and get them answers if they need them. So, as I said, this is just the beginning. We talked about safety first, and all of this will be printed in the AIDSWatch briefing, but just so people know, you will need to go through security. It is not, yeah, there are a number of things that are banned, including all weapons and mace and things like that. Here is the list if you need to look it up just to make sure that you are not carrying something with you. If you have a lot of metal or studs on your boots or things like that, it can take a while to get through security. Factor that in, plan it in, because security can be the biggest delay for people making their appointments on
Yes.
time. And then there are single occupancy restrooms for folks who are not comfortable using gendered bathrooms. This list here will be in the AIDSWatch brief. We'll also share it on our PWN Signal channel so that if you are somewhere and there is someone who does not feel comfortable using a gendered bathroom for whatever reason, you can help them find one nearby that is safe. And then I always say, if possible, go with them, because it just always, it's sort of like kindergarten. You don't have to hold hands going through the hallway, but having a buddy often helps people feel a little bit more secure. So we are here at the last part of it, and I'm going to pass it back to Melanie to answer some questions, to ask for some tips from our AIDSWatch experts. Melanie, take it away.
Okay, we're going to be sharing what are tips from those of us who have attended AIDSWatch prior, to help the ones who are coming for the first time, or this is their second time. I have to tell you, wear comfortable shoes. If you are someone who likes to wear a lot of jewelry, I tend to take my jewelry off. I want to get through that security. I don't want metal things to go off. And also, it's a good idea to use the form that Barb put in the chat, to jot your story that ties to an ask or to a policy brief in advance. You don't have to read it, but looking and having bullet points to keep you on task and get the your story out. It's good to have it written down. And One of the previous slides says practice with a friend. I don't know about anyone else, but when I write something down, it's like practicing because I write it, I read it, I rewrite. It is in my brain and in my heart. So it's easy for it to come out and come out just the way that you want. Um, are there any tips? Okay, I saw um, Rev, are you still on?
I
Because she
see.
said that she has
Yes, I'm
been.
on.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, you've been there 20, you've gone to AIDS Watch for 27 years. Do you have
27 plus
any,
years.
yes, do you have any tips to give our less experienced AIDS Watch
You mean our
attendees?
new folks? Okay, yes. Number one, you already said everything. Do not walk anywhere alone. Whether you be trans, cisgendered, whatever, don't walk anywhere alone. You're from out of state. You may not know that area, or you may know the area from before, but still protect yourself. Buddy up to ensure that all of us remain safe. Sister B said about your medication. Very, very important. Make sure that you have sufficient medication. You may get stuck, unfortunately. A lot of us has gotten stuck in the airport trying to
Mm-hmm.
get back home and all that stuff. Make sure that you're covered, that you have the medication that you're supposed to take every day. Make sure that you have contact information. If you get there, let us know. You know, if you don't have anybody at home, to let them know what's going on or where you're from or who did you come with, so that we can know besides your state that there's somebody else that knows that's what's going to go on with you, because you may walk away or go with some other people, new people, and something happened, God forbid. Um, don't yuck my yum. Don't take over the whole thing. I'm a pastor, but when I'm up at the Capitol, I allow each and every individual to say their story, because their story is really important. And another thing too, if you're the only one speaking, it like takes away from the presentation and the reason that you're there. We need many voices. All
Mm-hmm.
of our voices out of one pandemic came many. I know I'm like quoting part of the Bible, but that's just an idea of saying we're from all over it, and we need to remember that, and we need to make sure that each person, the person from upstate New York, the person that's in Brooklyn, New York, etc., can talk about what they're dealing with in the issues, and try not to make it, I mean, you're going to make it personal, but also, like Sally said, to implement the issues that are currently happening, that you feel are currently happening within your community. And I'm done, and thank you kindly.
Also, on Hill Visit Day, food is on your own. So be sure to have money for food. Um, and because you need to be nourished and you need to stay hydrated. You can bring water and snacks to munch on because there is a lot of walking, lots of walking. And the cafeteria, a lot of times, is crowded, and sometimes the food is a little bit expensive, but I tell you, you can see legislators from everywhere. You can recognize them. They use that same um, cafeteria. So sometimes you may be able to walk up on one and do a one-on-one to tell your story and do and ask individually, not with your group. The elevators are another good place to um, speak about why you're at on the hill today, and have an elevator speech, a short speech that between floors you can share why you're on the hill today and why it matters. That's a good place to talk. And then even in the halls, like for instance, a lot of times you don't get to see your representative. Um, in the office unless they're leaving out early to go to a meeting or coming back from a voting session in the Senate at the Capitol, and you can talk to them then. And it's it's a good feeling to know that you can recognize elected officials and that you can feel that you can say, even if it's nothing other than recognize them. Hi, Bernie Sanders. Hi, that they're known, and that pumps up their little ego. And are there any questions from those who are still on that you need to have answered?
Melanie, I see Yolanda's hand up.
Yolanda?
Yeah, it seems to me like our Texas HIV Advocacy Day on the Hill. That's the vibe I'm getting as I'm listening to you all, and I know that that's not the case, but I don't remember spending a lot of time at the Capitol when I went to AIDSWatch. I remember spending more time in different sessions at the hotel. So is it sundowners that I'm experiencing here?
Okay, on the first day is a half day and the second day is a full day. Those are usually at the hotel, except for the rally that's going to be at the Health and Human Services building. That's prior to the half day on Monday. On Hill Day, which is going to be on the 18th. That's all you do the rally early in the morning, and then you do your hill visits. There's no
I can help
sessions on
Mel.
that day.
Yeah.
I see Tana's hand up too, Melanie.
Okay, Tana.
Yeah, so and Yolanda, I'm listening to you. I will be there to help you and guide you for Texas. And so one of the things is really making sure that your shoes is comfortable because it is a lot of walking. That early morning rally before the hill visit starts on the 18th, I would tell you to be wrapped up because it's normally cold on the 18th because that before we go to the on the hill, that rally that we do early in the morning is going to be very cold. Let me just say that. So have your hat, your scarf, your coat, your sweater, or whatever.
Okay. Gloves.
Yes, but really make sure that your shoes are comfortable and make sure that you have your representative's number just in case you get lost somewhere or anything, you and your teammate get lost, that you have your representative's number, you have somebody from PWN's number, emails, whatever you need. Make sure that you have contacts and all of that. So we are here to help each other, and that's normally what we do at AIDSWatch. PWN takes care of PWN and everyone else.
That's right. Thank you for that, Tana.
Yeah, thank you, Tana.
Any other questions? Or any other tips? Guess we're getting to the close. And Barb, did you want to close us out?
Wait, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay, LaDon.
Okay, so I know this might be off the wall, but Barb, so when you talk about the groups that you all are talking about, is that the group that I was linked up that you was telling me that I will be with?
You're with your state delegation?
Well, Okay, so
Yeah,
I
Ladon, you and I can talk about it a little bit afterwards. So the groups that we're talking about are state-based groups, so everyone who comes from the same state will be together.
okay.
And then for large states that have a large delegation, so California, Texas, sometimes Florida, sometimes New York, they'll break into smaller groups so that everybody can go visit their representative. But yeah, you're with the Michigan group, Ladon.
Okay, so who is okay? Yeah, Barb, we gotta talk because I
Yeah,
don't think.
well, call me
Yeah,
and we'll talk
thank
more
you.
about it, okay?
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So one of the things that I think is real important for us to lift up, because we've mentioned it kind of, is that everybody's got a role that we play. And so if you're in a state, and you are there and you're sharing your story, that is great. Make sure that you get to share your story. Doesn't have to be in every single visit, but you should share your story, especially if you're a person living with HIV, in a number of different offices. You shouldn't just do it once or feel as if you don't really get to share your story. A number of folks who are on here are also going to be state coordinators, like Tana mentioned. They are the folks who have gone to AIDSWatch before, who have some
Okay.
advocacy experience, who have a little bit of a sense of how this works, and usually have experienced it when it hasn't worked well, especially for people living with HIV in the past. So the state coordinators, those are the ones that are going to go ahead and get you from office to office, are going to kind
Ah,
of have a run of
got it.
show, who are going to have a run of show for the people who are speaking in the office visits. And so as state coordinators, we can also step in and make sure that everybody gets to get heard from, that they get to talk about something that's important to them, and that this time is not being taken over by some of the organizations in our states that feel like they need to advocate for their funding needs and often can overpower. This goes back to when we were talking about power and privilege. Sometimes the voices of independent advocates gets overwhelmed by the organizations that are in the states that send a number of their staff there to advocate for funding that keeps their organization going. Their points are critical, but their points are no more critical than a person living with HIV. And so, as the state coordinators, what we would then do is we would then say, let's hear from one organization and two people living with HIV. Organization, you're going to talk about Ryan White funds. People living with HIV, what do you want to talk about? Oh, you want to talk about gender affirming care? You want to talk about housing? Great. Those are the 3 points we'll make in this meeting with our senator. And then you run that meeting. And if the organizational person is running a little bit over, then you just say, great, we're going to stop there and actually pass to the next person. Like, you need to facilitate this, because oftentimes when people get themselves into places, especially where there's some power, some privilege, and some, like people in the community that are used to being heard from and able to able that they're let to have all the time they need to share their points. Sometimes we need to just actually draw them to a conclusion and continue on with making sure that we lift up the stories that are most important, which are the stories, our voices, our community. So I probably sound like a broken record as I continue to repeat that, but I now have actually over 30 years have gone to numerous AIDSWatches, and the ones that are the best are the ones where we are empowered, not tokenized, and are included to share in ways that lift us up. So we are at time. We're actually just a smidge over time. Hopefully this was really helpful. Here's my number. Here's my email. There's Sally's email if you've got any questions about the political piece, or just anything in general. Sally's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Crystal's going to be there. Marnina's going to be there. Ebony's going to be there. We're going to have a great PWN team supporting and helping in any way that we can. So let us know. And then if you all want to just quickly kind of scan the QR code, let us know how we did today. We always like to know how we can improve our conversations and our preparation as we get ready to be in places like Washington, D.C. for AIDSWatch. because meaningful involvement, leadership development, empowerment, all of that, that is what PWN is about, because we are by and for our community. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stay on so that people can go ahead and fill out the evaluation. It shouldn't take you much more than about 2 or 3 minutes. As a little bit of an incentive for folks that fill it out, we do have a $20 gift card. So we will do a raffle after people are done submitting their evaluations, probably tomorrow, and some lucky person will get an extra $20 in their pocket, which always helps. Can I share the link? Let's see. Yes, I can. Lizzie, give me a second. I'm going to have to look it up, but I'll find it in just a minute and I'll put it in, okay? And if you have filled out the evaluation and you want to hang out, that's great. If you are ready to go back about your day or start dinner or take a step back from your computer, thank you all for joining us. We're really grateful that you were able to be here, that you shared your thoughts, your concerns. As the elders said, we don't leave anyone behind. We make sure that everybody gets to where they need to be in ways that feel safe and comfortable to them. And I am, Lizzie, almost at the link. Okay. There you go.
Thanks, Barb. This was helpful. Actually, what you said at the end explained everything I was going to call and ask you about the coordinator. I understand
Oh,
it now
okay.
and what their
How
role
about
is.
that?
I got it. Thank you so much for that piece.
You're so welcome. Yeah, it's people sometimes get a little confused between the state coordinators and being a part of a state contingency and you know how exactly we all want to be engaged and connected and supported. That's the most important piece.
I actually have a conversation with the state coordinator tomorrow that you linked me up with. So thank you. Now I
Okay.
understand. So thank you.
Okay, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, LaDon is going to represent Michigan and is actually going to be one of the state coordinators for Michigan in partnership with someone who is going to show her the ropes, which is great. And LaDon, thank you for being brave and stepping in and being willing to lead on your very, very, very first time going.
Thanks. I think PWN has geared me for this, so I'm ready and excited.
Mm, mm. That's so good. That's so good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording. Thank you all.